All right, guys. So to the left, we have the Sony X900H. To the right, we have the Hisense H9H. I'll let you know the short answer. The Hisense beat the Sony from what I noticed. And from what my wife noticed, we were both just looking at these TVs. And I got to tell you, the Hisense took pretty much everything as far as the picture quality goes. And I think it's pretty impressive. Again, Sony processing being beaten out by a Hisense, and it's also the brighter of the two TVs with a ton more contrast, so that's really good. The weak point, though, of the Hisense is that its local dimming, it tends to hunt around on like a completely black screen where you see weird flashing. I don't know if that's just my panel, but right now I saw some weird flashing there that was happening. But overall, the Hisense is just doing a great job of providing the kind of image quality that you'd want to see at this price point. For me, I paid $650 on sale. Regular price is $699 for the 55 inch, and then the Sony for the same 55-inch size, you're talking $1,000, over $1,000, and they got beaten by a $600, $700 television. So I think that's something that you might want to weigh up when you're thinking about spending money just because it's HDMI 2.1. It's very clear that Sony had to make some cutbacks, I guess, to promote their X950H, but the cutbacks really hurt the image quality. I mean, the brightness is the biggest one. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but the highlights flying off of the Hisense are just fantastic. Now, of course, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to show you when I'm trying to tone map for two TVs that's going to be 100% accurate. This is like one of the harder kinds of tests to do, so you're just going to have to take my word for what I'm saying or compare it yourself. But either way, the Hisense is definitely spanking Sony. I mean, the color, the depth, the realism, all of it is just looking incredible on the Hisense. Where Sony, they have good black levels, and I think that's their strong suit for the 900H. Colors are really good, but again, compared to something that has a built-in color space management system, it's not going to be able to hold its own very well after a while. And yes, they did rip out. I mean, look at that depth right there. Let's just pause that. I mean, my goodness, look at the Hisense. It's like 3D right now, and the Sony basically looks 2D by comparison. That's weird, but hey, it is what it is, right? And so what I was saying though is that, when you talk about color, the Sony does have good color, but it's just not as good as it could be. So I think that's one of the sour things, because they did rip out the color space management system this year, which I rather liked, and I think that you shouldn't have to pay the extra markup to go to the 950H to get that feature along with smooth gradation. I don't know why they ripped that out. And for all those people that were watching my prior videos saying that, try regular content, you still have banding on regular content. So it's nowhere near as bad as it was, granted, through a compressed YouTube video. However, I will point out the 900E does not suffer from any banding because they gave the processing tools to take that stuff out. So it is a downgrade, and it was something worth mentioning, because one of the things that Sony prioritized with the X1 4K HDR processor chip found in 2017 was that it was able to handle low bitrate content very well. Well, they ripped that out, and now your low bitrate content looks like garbage. And then, of course, you guys know that watch me regularly, I have all these apologists and all these justifications coming out, but either way, it's like, listen, I don't care if I hurt your feelings by telling you what the truth is. If you can't handle it, don't watch these videos, because you're going to know what happens. And I'm not going to play favorites either way, so tough. That being said, I mean, the Hisense is definitely kicking the Sony's butt. Now, that's not to say that it's a total slaughter and Sony isn't holding its own in some aspects, because contrast is really good, and there are moments where the contrast exceeds what the Hisense is capable of doing, but at the same point in time, it doesn't happen very often. And for $1,000, I would definitely feel a type of way about it, because not only does the Hisense have the better motion that makes things look like 60 FPS when they're not, but the color is something like when you dial the color in, it's like, oh my God, man, like it's just another level. And Sony is supposed to be the best when it comes to replicating that, and they just didn't do it right this time around, and I'm really disappointed in them. Now, of course, on camera, as I look right now, the Sony has the better shades of cyan, and I think that's one of the colors they represent really well. But now, as you see, the rich royal blue is better on the Hisense. So like I was saying a moment ago, Sony is throwing blows back. It's not like it's helpless and all the colors are going to look terrible. But at the same token, I mean, come on, man. For $1,000, you'd better blow this Hisense back to the next millennium. And it just doesn't happen. And now Hisense has the better cyan, and it's like the Sony looks dead by comparison. And I think when you're in the market for these TVs and they do cost what they cost, you have to weigh things up fairly. Now, as I saw Buzz Lightyear fly up there, the Sony did have more banding. This is an HDMI source, so I mean, people are gonna complain, but I'll show it off if you must see. I'll try to pause. Okay, the Sony has a ton more banding in the shades of purple there. Actually, it looks purple when it's not supposed to, and that's like post-cal, but I'll show you guys the banding I'm talking about. Okay, so here's the Sony. I don't know how much of it's going to come through on YouTube, right? All this noise, all this nonsense. This is an HDMI connection, okay? And then we're going to walk over to the Hisense, and you have a lot of the same stuff, but it's not as bad. It's not as blotchy, right? And, I think that's the problem when I can go over to the Sony, and not only do I see those lines, but I also see banding in between those lines. Like, there are little bands happening in between these lines, where on the Hisense, it's just like chroma noise, really, and it's not even like banding. So I think that's really sad when Hisense can have better noise control than what Sony is doing. Now resuming the clip here, as I look at both images, the Hisense again, the stronger between the two. As I pause here, the shades of green more vivid, the shades of blue more vivid. Really, every single color is more vivid. Every type of contrast is isolated better, making that three-dimensional feeling. And it literally looks like it looks right now, anyway, on the camera. As I look at my phone and I look at the TV paused, it looks identical. You would not be able to tell a difference. So it is showing a true-to-life representation, more or less. The Sony is a little bit better, actually, than what it looks like on camera, but the Hisense is just bang on like that. So I think that's very strange. And again, I'm not throwing shade at Sony. I love my Sony A8G, my 900E, but this is not, it's not about that, right? This is about you knowing if you're on the fence between buying the Hisense H9G or the Sony X900H, you're going to have to weigh up what matters to you, right? Like, the color is going to be a huge, big problem as far as comparing the two, because the Hisense clearly has the better color. There are no two ways about that. But the Sony clearly has the better black levels at moments. So, I particularly the local dimming algorithm doesn't hunt for things as much. But, I mean, the clarity is just unbelievable. It's quite amazing, actually, what a $600, $700 TV is doing on Hisense's end. And need I remind you, it's going up against a Sony. Like, Sony is a flagship brand, and you would think that they would just body this TV, but it's just not happening. So, pretty disappointing stuff for anybody who's a brand loyalist, I suppose. But let's go into some more scenes here. Now we've got Bolt, and the colors again on the Hisense are really what's grabbing my eye more and more as I look at this. And right now, they both look good, but again, it's that extra punch coming out of the Hisense. That green is phenomenal. And I mean, I don't know, man. It's going to be a person-to-person thing. I know there are going to be like at least half a dozen people to over a dozen in the comment section telling me that the more washed out look of the Sony looks more natural, the Hisense looks oversaturated. I'm going to tell you right now again in this video, do not take everything you're seeing as true word of real world representations, because unless I tell you that it's what I'm seeing, you're not seeing the full picture here. And I'm explaining it like this so that you can kind of grasp what I'm seeing, but there is no real way to show that off flawlessly. So you guys got to keep that in mind. But like right now, the green on the Hisense, like goodness gracious, it's freaking insane. Like the intensity behind the glow around that versus that is ridiculous. Like it basically looks blue. So food for thought there, guys. Essentially, either way you look at it, they have great picture. Like right now, the Sony looks three-dimensional and it's punching. So again, they trade blows. And that's really what it comes down to. But if I had to pick a winner overall for the more accurate looking image, it's going to be the Hisense. I mean, look at that color. There is no denying that color. And that is a true-to-life representation of what we see in our world. Multiple shades, multiple hues, multiple levels of color volume. That's what we're after when we do these comparisons. And the Hisense consistently is banging out a more true-to-life image. Therefore, it is the winner between the two televisions. I gotta skip that clip because Lord knows they'll try to claim the entire video for those particular clips. But either way, guys, I hope this was enlightening and it showed you guys as much as I could show you. Thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. Leave your questions, comments, concerns down below. Till the next video, I'll see you guys later.